All right, let's talk about the Montreal Canadiens. They were 8th in the Atlantic last year. Their underlying stats were terrible: 30th in Corsi for percentage, 27th in expected goals for percentage, and 30th in scoring chances for percentage at even strength. I mean, they were right where they were supposed to be. Nothing surprising here. 5v5 save percentage, they were actually pretty good. They had a 908 as a team, which was 13th in the league. And then their shooting percentage was 13th as well at 9.67 at even strength. Their power play, 27th in the league at 17.5% conversion rate. And their production on the power play under the hood was not good either. So a team that is, very young. They're just pushing through. This is a team that I do think could see a little bit more success this year. And that is partially because of one major move that they made in the offseason. Their key departures, Jordan Harris and Tanner Pearson. Their key additions, Patrik Laine and Alex Barboulay. Up until the Laine trade, it was really just like, okay, like it's just the same old Canadians. Like, hopefully their young guys take a step, and maybe there's some guys that graduate from the minors that do something in the NHL. But yeah, Patrik Laine is huge. Like that changes the look of their power play. It's just another weapon along with Cole Caufield that can shoot the puck. And that, I think that could move the needle at least a little bit there to kind of raise them potentially above teams like the Senators and the Sabres in the Atlantic Division. What are your thoughts on the Laine trade? Are you excited about this in terms of fantasy?
I'm super excited. I root for pretty much all Canadian teams, so I remember when Winnipeg got that second overall when they jumped a bit, and I was so excited because this prospect had so many comparisons to a shot like Ovechkin's. And I remember that 2016 draft. It was like maybe he should be the first overall. So I was a little bummed to see his career not really panning out in that way. But mental health can be a bitch, and if he can overcome that, I think this guy could be a hell of a player. It's a little outside of hockey analytics. Montreal is a tough fucking market. It's a really tough market, and I do wonder how someone with vulnerable mental health is going to perform there, especially when they're on a cold streak. Even the best goal scorers, they go on their cold streaks, and it seems like Patrik can be a little hard on himself. So hopefully the coaching staff in Montreal are able to give him a nurturing environment so that he could just focus on slamming pucks into the back of the nets.
On the flip side, he is a very confident guy and has notoriously been that way in the media. He already has said that he is not coming back to score 20, 30 goals. He's wanted to score 40, 50. That's exactly what you want to hear out of Patrik Laine. I think that having Marty St. Louis as a coach is going to be pretty major for Laine. I think that he is kind of he seems like a nurturing voice for young players. Not that Laine's young, but he's a guy that needs to kind of like get the confidence back and get back in a headspace where he can produce again. And I think Marty St. Louis is a guy that can put him in a situation where he'll succeed. So I'm pretty excited about Patrik Laine. I mean, I have relatively conservative excitement, but it's certainly excitement, definitely.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And then in terms of goaltending, Sam Montembeault has been pretty awesome the last couple of years. He had 40 starts last year in a situation where there was a 3 goaltender carousel for a good chunk of the year. He still had 40 starts. So I think I see him as the 1A here at the very least, if not a volume starter. He had a 910 even strength save percentage, not a 970. It might look like that. A 910 even strength save percentage. Caden Primo had 21 starts with a 924 even strength save percentage. I don't know. What do you think here? Like, Caden Primo obviously performed pretty well in a limited sample size. He's been a guy that's been fairly highly touted for a while. That's a guy that I definitely have an eye on in terms of 0G situations. Yeah. But Montembeault as well has a decent sample size of outperforming the environment in front of him. And the environment hasn't been great. Let's be honest. Like the defense for Montreal is not strong, and I don't think it's really that much better this year.
No.
So I think Montembeault is a guy certainly to consider, but I don't know. What do you think about Montreal? Like, are you interested in either of these guys in your drafts?
I'm probably not gonna draft Montebo unless it's super late. The way I judge goalies, I'm zero G like pretty much I think everyone in Apples and G knows, but I judge goalies based on the defense in front of them, and as you said, the defense in front of Montebo and Primo, not too great. But that just makes it that much more remarkable that these guys performed as well as they did with a rebuilding young team that doesn't play very good defense. So, maybe if they make, a move for a stellar stay-at-home defenseman, or they just change their defensive structure a bit, maybe we could see some more positive regression. But honestly, late rounds or waiver wire pickups for me. I'm not going to spend too much draft capital on these guys.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Talk to me about schedule quirks for the Montreal Canadiens this year.
They got 15 back-to-backs, third best in the league. 27 off nights, that's tied for 19th best. For playoffs weeks 22 to 24, they have 11 games and 3 off nights. And for weeks 23 to 25, you get 13 games with 6 off nights.
Yeah, so the 13 games with 6 off nights in weeks 23 to 25. That's the second best playoff schedule in the league over that stretch. So pretty interesting, actually. Like, even though they don't have a ton of off nights through the year, there are a decent amount right at the end of the season. So definitely, especially these top 4 forwards on the Canadiens. Those are guys that you probably want in your lineup if your playoffs are in those weeks. In terms of weeks 22 to 24, a lot of games. 11 games is a lot over that stretch. 3 off nights, not so great. But again, these top guys are going to be playing a lot over that stretch. So if they're, guys like Caufield is going to be in your lineup every night. So if you've got a guy like that playing 11 games over your playoffs, you're pretty happy with that. All right, let's talk about the power play projection. I think this is pretty cut and dry for the most part. There is a conversation that you could have in a couple spots, but I've got Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield, Patrik Laine, Juraj Slafkovsky, and Mike Matheson. Matheson, I think, was so productive last year. Really efficient across the board, had career highs everywhere. Lane Hutson though is waiting in the wings as kind of the power play 1 quarterback of the future. Do you see him potentially stealing some power play time this year, or is it maybe a little too soon?
Yeah, I think it's a little too soon. Marty St. Louis has praised Matheson constantly. He loves Matheson on the power play. Matheson produces on the power play, and I think there's some actual pressure for this team to not just suck. I think management and coaching want them to at least attempt to hit that bubble playoff position. So I just don't see a rookie with 0 games in the NHL taking that position, unless like it's midway through the season and Matheson's dealing with some injuries, sure. But as of right now, I wouldn't be worried about that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there, to be honest. I do see Hutson as a guy that could perform even without power play time right out of the gate. He's that good, I think. But for this season, I think Matheson is probably still the guy on the power play. All right, why don't you walk us through my forward projections for the Montreal Canadiens?
All right, we got Nick Suzuki projected for 28 goals, 46 assists, 74 points. Juraj Slafkovsky, 20 goals, 43 assists, 63 points, and a beastly 146 hits. He's a big boy. And Cole Caufield, 43 goals, 28 assists, 71 points with 320 shots. The new guy, Patrik Laine, 31 goals, 33 assists, 64 points. Coming back to that old Patrik Laine we remember. Alex Newhook, who everyone forgets is a Montreal Canadien, 17 goals, 25 assists, 42 points. And Kirby Dach, which I am interested in, 13 goals, 22 assists, and 35 points.
What pops out at you here in terms of those projections?
Slafkovsky, I think last year people were wondering that this might be a bit of an overperformance, but I actually agree that he's capable of 20 goals. He's solid. I think he's won the trust of his coaching staff, and he's only getting more and more confident. You could just see the confidence he's off of him. Look at his highlight reel package from last year. So I'm looking forward to putting Slafkovsky on my teams. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think there's some really nice peripheral coverage, like you said, with 146 hits that I have him projected for. This I think is a relatively conservative projection for Slavkovsky. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling, where he could potentially have similar point totals to Suzuki and Caufield, up in the 70s. I think that there's a situation where that could happen if things fall right for Slafkovsky. So I am pretty excited for him going into this year. I have Caufield for a career high 43 goals. I mean, this isn't a big surprise. Everyone talks about him being the only 40 goal scorer in the league to not actually score 40 goals. But he is destined to do that. He's an elite shot producer, one of the best in the league. And his conversion rate was down last year. So I just see him. I see him bouncing back in a really good way and being a really, really valuable fantasy asset. And then Patrik Laine, I have a relatively conservative projection for him: 31 goals, 33 assists. I do think that there could be potential for some value there, although his 5v5 situation I'm not super excited about, unless he is able to find his way on the top line. But then that would kind of eat into the production of the other guys. So you're maybe not as excited about those guys then there either. So all right, let's go to the defense. So I've got 3 guys projected here. Why don't you walk us through those projections?
Mike Matheson's going to get you 15 goals, 41 assists, and 56 points. He's projected for 176 blocks. Lane Hutson, 9 goals, 16 assists, 25 points. Not bad for a rookie D. And Caden Goulet, I love this guy. He's beautiful in a bangers league. Caden Goulet for 6 goals, 20 assists, 26 points, 127 hits, and 203 blocks. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I think Goulet's going to be a guy that you're picking up and dropping in your bangers cats leagues across the board. Probably isn't going to get any power play opportunity, but that's a guy that is growing and has proven that he can fill the stat categories for sure. Lane Hutson, like I said, I think he could score 10 goals right out of the gate in his rookie season, which for a defenseman is solid, especially one that's not getting much power play time. So, and then Mike Matheson, I think he's a guy that is pretty exciting. And a guy that's being underdrafted in Yahoo. He's getting drafted at 126, which is shocking to me. Like after the season he had last year, I just don't think that the general population is paying attention to him yet. In Albus and Chino's leagues, he's getting drafted at 61. That's probably a more reasonable spot for Mike Matheson. I've seen him go even higher than that in some spots, which I don't know that I love, but yeah, I'm still pretty high on him this year for sure. And then in terms of a punt, I've got Kirby Dach. So Kirby Dach is getting, I mean, he's not really getting drafted, but he's a guy that's on a lot of people's radars. I just don't see him producing a ton without power play time. That's going to hurt him. So unless he's able to get on that top unit in some way, shape, or form, which I just don't see it happening, he's a punt for me. And then my sleeper is Lane Hutson, and that is mainly contingent upside. Like if Matheson gets hurt or if they decide to give him an opportunity on the top power play, I think he could produce really nicely for them. I don't think he's going to be a big peripherals guy, but there's really limited sample size. He's only played 1 game in the league, I believe. So we'll see kind of what he brings there. It's hard. Peripherals are hard to project for rookies, but I think Hutson is definitely exciting and a guy to watch. Definitely. Top 3 targets. I've got Cole Caufield. We mentioned that before. I think he's going to have a really good year. In Yahoo leagues, he's getting drafted at 85th, which that would be incredible for Cole Caufield. And then Apples and Genos leagues, he's at 44th. And that seems like a reasonable spot for Cole Caufield. Like I'm pretty happy with that. So that's the back end of the fourth round. If you get him any later than that, I think that's really nice value. Juraj Slafkovsky, I think he could bring you some nice value. In Yahoo leagues, he's getting drafted at 112. That's a really nice spot for him. In Apples and Genos leagues, 73rd. Not sure I'm as stoked about that. But if you're getting him past pick 100, I think you're really excited about Slafkovsky. And then Patrik Laine, I think he could bring you some nice value. I do think his ADPs are pretty inaccurate just because the trade happened so recently. So it's not even really worth assessing those. They're like in the around 150 in both spots. But that's certainly not where he's going to land when draft season comes. So hard to tell with him, but I think that he could potentially bring you some nice value too. Any other names you want to touch on here, Gugsy, before we move on?
Yeah, for Kirby Doc, I agree with your sentiment that he's not going to have much of a year for fantasy, but I do want him on my watch list just in case, like let's say Slafkovsky or Laine really don't click with anyone. I think Kirby Doc's going to be that first one and first man up. So he's on my watch list. I'm not expecting much for him unless he gets that power play one time. And I'm going to have some notifications on my phone just in case one of these forwards gets injured so I can quickly pick him up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I think he probably is the next man up beyond those two guys. So yeah, I think that's a fair point for sure.